I want to give a voice to the voiceless. I wanted to interview people that didn't have a social media platform, knowing that I was being lied to. Good people into these institutions if we were to ever stand a chance of turning them around.
Hi everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing guest, first time on the channel, is a lady you may have seen on Unprecedented TV, and that's Claire Dyer. How you doing, Claire?
Hi, I'm fine. Thank you for having me on. I'm sure this is going to be a very interesting chat.
well, hopefully that's why I picked you. For people who don't know about Unprecedented TV, it's a channel set up by the former MP Lembit Opik, and he's got several presenters now working on his channel, and you run a show called Dyer Consequences, which is a twist on your name, Claire Dyer. Quite clever, whoever came up with that. I like that.
I'll have to give credit to Lembit for that. He literally just wrung it out of thin air and said, it's a funny story. I literally phoned him one day and said, could you please interview me on Unprecedented? Didn't know what Unprecedented was. I'd just done Iconic with Gareth Ike, and I just felt that I needed a wider audience because censorship is I get a lot of censorship, especially on Facebook. And I'm not great on social media. I thought, so I'll give him a call and see if he will interview me. Had a long conversation, which ended up 2 hours. And he said, I can't interview you, Claire Dyer. And I thought, oh, okay, fine. What's wrong? He said, your voice needs to be heard. And I want you to have a show on Unprecedented TV. And we're going to call it Dyer Consequences. And I was like, okay then. And before I knew it, 3 days later, we were doing a preview. And the following week, I was doing a show. The concept, as I said, there was never any concept or talks about how it would go. It just found its own way, if you like. And in my mind, I felt very much that I wanted to interview people that didn't have a social media platform that other social media and also mainstream media wouldn't pick up on, because these people weren't known, but were fighting real issues in their own communities and their own lives. And it just kind of went from there. And obviously, you know, I have a lot of people following me. So I would have people messaging me about things that were going on where they live or things that had directly happened to them. And my kind of slogan in my head was, I want to give a voice to the voiceless, the people that don't get the opportunity to tell their story, because I don't feel personally there's a lot I can do to change things.
Please excuse this interruption, but I just wanted to tell you, England is the greatest country ever to exist in the world.
But in some respects, I can make some people feel better and feel that they're being heard. So that's kind of really how it's gone. And I will just cover sort of any topic that I feel needs to be heard or given a chance to be heard, or that person should be heard, regardless of whether it's relevant or current or not. I think everything that is going on and everything that most people are experiencing are all linked and connected anyway. So anything that is potentially a local issue, or anything that's happening to somebody personally, like a woman that had been abused by a police officer, this is happening everywhere. All of it is. So a lot of people, I think it doesn't matter what the topic is, a lot of people will relate to each and every show. So that's kind of really how it came about. So yeah, about 6 months ago.
It's a great way of doing your show, because you're right. Most shows, most podcasters, I'm as guilty as everybody else, we go after the current topic. So, you know, and lots of people, I mean, that's what's important about free speech. Free speech is not about being right or being wrong. Free speech is giving people the ability to talk and to give their point of view, whether or not they're right or wrong, because who are we to judge them? Are they right or are they wrong? Because I'll tell you now, many things that we now know are perfectly true, I thought for years were conspiracy theories. I thought these people were nutcases, mental. And then decades later, it turns out you were wrong, Nick, because it's all been proven now So we shouldn't be silencing people. We should be getting more people with more opinions, more voices, because within that somewhere is the truth. And that's what I'm always trying to find. I'm never trying to prove myself correct. I'm just trying to find the truth. And that's what's important about your show. The local issues, local people who are ignored, who have been minimized, who are told to shut up. No one wants to speak to them, and you give them those platforms. So well done to Dyer Consequences.
I mean, I'm new to this. I mean, 4 years ago, I wouldn't even video myself. I would write a lot of posts, and there was a lot of things that I would write that I felt should really be spoken. So you could, feel more of the tone. But I didn't like putting myself out there. So that was kind of new to me. And now what's new to me is actually interviewing. So I've been on the other side of it here and there over the last couple of years, whether it was GB News, ITV, BBC, TNT, when that was going. Here and there, people have asked me to come on. And I kind of felt that with mainstream media, if it was current, and it definitely served political at the time. So take ULEZ. At the time, we had the mayor elections coming up, and you had Conservatives and both Reform on the same side in terms of being against ULEZ. So from a political point of view, it was interesting. So they wanted people like me on to talk about that. But I very quickly learned, as I said, I've never got myself involved in politics. But so I very quickly learnt that even with mainstream media, once the mayoral elections were over, a lot of political people were like, okay, see you later. But also the mainstream media, I found that I would email them and say, look, this is currently happening with ULEZ. They weren't interested anymore, because it wasn't relevant and it didn't serve a political purpose or agenda. And so therefore you found that you were very quickly silenced in that respects. I don't like that. So and again, I feel like I was late to the party because I've only sort of seen things in the last 6.5 years, maybe a little bit longer, whereas there's people that have been calling out a lot of these things that are currently happening for many, many years. And like you said, we're going, oh, yeah, that's what you would label a conspiracy theorist. And I have to say, not that I've ever actually had a real personal opinion, but I've seen the term floating around. I see the term flat earthers. I've never really thought about it too much, but would have to say possibly guilty of just accepting it. Oh yeah, that's a conspiracy theory, and never really given it any thought and just carried on with my life. So really for me, 6.5 years ago, late to the party in some people's eyes, but people are still waking up to certain things that are going on and now searching for the truth every single day. So it was just one thing for me, really. And I think the thing for me was knowing that I was being lied to. And I don't think that comes down to anything other than just normal human thinking and common sense, that if somebody's lying to you and it doesn't matter what it's about, they're lying for a reason. First off, that reason is they don't want you to know the truth. And then in my head, I'm very much, okay, so what is the truth then? That you think you need to lie and manipulate. So yeah, that's kind of really how it was for me. And I would say it was probably a little bit of more of a spiritual thing, a bit of an epiphany that for my own personal reasons, I kind of looked back at my life and thought, I can see why certain things have happened in my life, why there's been certain trauma. And actually, a lot of this is about me as a person, that I feel that I've always possibly felt a certain way about humanity, about society, about how people should treat each other and how people don't. And it kind of then made sense as to why I felt like I never really fitted in. I wouldn't say that I was a rule breaker and I wouldn't conform. I just felt that if something was the norm or if something was current or it was trendy, didn't matter what it was, I wanted the opposite, because I felt that I didn't want to be the same as everyone else. I wanted to be unique. And I actually remember, bizarrely, 1997, when it was 1996 when I was getting married. And I was looking at the wedding dresses, and they were saying all of these here, they're all, trending and current and popular for 98 season. And I went, I want to look at them then. Didn't matter whether I liked them or not. I didn't want to look at them because I didn't want what everyone else had. I didn't want to wear what everyone else had. I just felt that I didn't want to blend. And I think that then goes to fitting in the box. So I feel that it isn't just about the issues and the agendas and the policies and the acts and everything that's going on. It's about humanity as a whole, and it's about how we're being conditioned and given labels, put into box, how everyone wants to fit into society. No one wants to be left out or excluded or step outside of conforming. And I think that's why we are easily kind of manipulated. In a sense, it's almost like being groomed, and how we are conditioned, and how through fear of being excluded, say from society or from, the box, it silences us. And I think that's what needs to change across the board. And I think fundamentally that's what it comes down to.
A lot of things you've described there is human nature, because we are a social creature, we're a tribal creature. 90% of us are sheep, and that's not name calling, because you couldn't have a tribe full of me and you, because we're not conformists. We always want different, and a tribe wouldn't survive like that. But you only need a small percentage of people who could be potential leaders, and those potential leaders are people like me and you. And then, people are afraid of being excluded from the group, because, 1,000 years ago, if you was excluded from the group, that was a death sentence. You would die. You couldn't cope in the world on your own because of the elements, because of other tribes, because of other animals. So all this has been built into us. But there's always the exception. There's always people who take one step forward, and then other people have to follow them to get to a better place and a better tomorrow. Let's move on to what do you think, well, for you, your opinion, what would you say are the one or two big issues that you think are big issues at the moment?
Oh, that's a difficult one, because I think they're all big issues in one way or another. But, if we're going to go currently right now in terms, well, actually, there's a couple. I feel that everything's moving very fast at the moment. So if I was going to say right now at this moment in time, and people would obviously disagree because it's going to be sort of personal, and I'm trying not to look at it from a personal perspective, because there are quite a few. But I would say right now there is a massive full-on agenda that it's always been in the planning, but it's really kick-started now with land grab. So that's all the housing development on Greenbelt. And that actually doesn't just include housing. It includes solar farms, the battery farms, the data centres. If you actually were to look around the country, I mean, I know just where I am, the amount of housing developments that have gone in quick succession, or are going in around us. It's literally happened overnight, and there's so many, not to mention on top of a solar farm, a battery farm. And I'm looking at that, and I'm even just nationally, with over 100 planned data centers and over 100 planned battery farms going in, some of which are the size of 9 football pitches. When you look at that on a map, it's shocking. So they are going for a lot of our land. So when people look at that isolated to say just one development in one area and say, but you've got all this countryside and green space, you need to look at the bigger picture in that, because obviously the knock-on effect, especially with what they're doing to the farmers and they're selling off cheap because they're thinking about their own survival. But the knock-on effect is somewhere down the line, are we going to be able to provide our own food source, especially being an island? So currently, right now, there is a massive full-scale land grab going on across the entire country. But what do I think is probably the biggest issue when it comes to my heart would be the abuse of children in all forms. So the child sex trafficking trade, the fact that 90% of our own children in this country alone go missing to that trade, or the grooming gangs through our own social services. And that's a dodgy, it's not a great one to speak out about. And then whether that extends to the minimal sentences that people in our own institutions get for paedophilia, etc. So that is probably the biggest, it's not even an issue, it's the biggest, it's the most disgusting thing ever. And when it comes to the children, everything should be about the children. It should be about protecting the children. So I think that is probably the biggest problem that we actually have. But yes, in terms of the agendas right now, I would say the land grab. But as things are coming at us so thick anyway, and fast.
It seems to be people, these multinational billionaire companies seem to be buying up Western Europe. And you're right, they seem to be buying land, buying stuff. Partly because it's security, because land won't go down in price. But it's the other reasons why, and you're quite right. Farms seem to be going out of business, but it's okay. We'll buy our food from the third world. It's cheaper. We'll ship it here. But during the Second World War, Hitler almost destroyed the UK by starving us to death, because he just blockaded the UK with ships, because we're so dependent. That was 100 years ago. So dependent on imported food, and we're even more so dependent today than we were then. So it's very dangerous not to be able to produce your own food at a high level. And some of these organizations are, extremely dodgy, all connected to the WEF. It seems to be like a global communist organization. But I think the good news for this is I think we've reached peak globalism now. I think we're going to slowly over the next few decades go back down to national states. I think the next government who comes into the UK will be looking at getting rid of quite a lot of this, and over the next few decades, even more of it will go. Just like the woke agenda, I think we've reached a peak. I think we're on our way down, and some of those problems hopefully will disappear. But the big issue, you're right. I mean, I've been looking at child sex exploitation for over 2 decades. I've won national awards for projects I've set up tackling this. I think I've had about six or seven offenders arrested and prosecuted, all of them white men. And the more you look into this, the more you realize how much of it's going on. And there's always gone on through the history of time. This has always gone on. I did an interview the other day with former Rochdale MP Simon Danczuk, and he was the one who outed Cyril Smith in Parliament. Unfortunately, he was already dead. So this has just been, and it
seems to be quite common, doesn't it? Take Jimmy Savile.
Yeah. I mean,
who died before they're exposed.
Yeah, I think part of that, there's 2 things there. The victims are terrified of speaking out while these people are alive, because they've been severely damaged by them, and these are powerful people, and they're scared to speak out. And once the person's dead, a lot of that fear then is gone. And people who knew what was going on are also fearful, and they speak out after the fact. A good one is Esther Vanson. When she worked for the BBC, she's admitted she heard lots of rumours about Jimmy Savile, but didn't say anything, didn't look into it, didn't tell anybody, because she was probably fearful for her own career. And when he died, she came out, and I was screaming at the TV going, why didn't you do something at the time? But most people are not brave. Most of us think we're brave, and most of us think we'll do the right thing at the right time. But when it happens, we're selfish creatures, and most people will put themselves first and not take those risks. But children are...
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of people see what is happening differently, and there's people that believe that actually this is a spiritual war, and in part I do. I believe it's a spiritual and psychological war on humanity, one that's been building for many, many years. So I would say that is what is unseen. You can't actually really see that, but you can feel it as being one of the main issues, because I think to be able to kind of get away with all of this, you've got to desensitize people. And I do feel that this has been building for a long time. And the way I describe it is that I say that it is a war between good and evil. The scales are not tipped in our favor of good. And we need to go through all of this as humans, for the balance, to restore balance. I don't know. I mean, who does know? But I do see that even over the last 5-6 years, things have changed. Our country's changed, our world has changed, but not just in the sense of what is actually physically happening, but also what is mentally happening, on a kind of a spiritual and a humanity level. And I feel that people in general, societies, communities, individuals are slowly losing their way. And I think a lot of that is because of what they're doing to us. I think that's part of the purpose. They are putting all of this pressure and stress on us, that it is becoming a fight for survival individually. So either yourself or your immediate family, and people are now becoming more selfish, more self-absorbed. And I think that wouldn't end well. I think it needs to go the other way. People do need to look out for each other and come together as communities. I don't think you're never ever going to get anybody to agree. We talk about divide and conquer. We talk about all of these movements, and they always end up fractured. You can't get everyone in one country. I mean, how many is it? 69 million we're up to. You're never going to get 69 million agreeing, and you're never going to get all of these movements all over the country, however many thousands of millions of people they are, to agree and always stick together, united and everything. But I do believe that you can come together in your own communities and be able to hold that together and work, for a greater purpose. And whilst I don't believe in any political party, and I do have, to a degree, an automatic distrust of anyone in politics, at the same time, I do think that we do need to get good people into these institutions if we were to ever stand a chance of turning them around. I don't think that's my place, because the type of person that I am, as an empath, I don't think that I would be able to mentally survive that world. But I think there are other people out there who are mentally stronger to be able to withstand that environment. But I do think that is part of the way of moving forward. And then there's other people that just say there's nothing you can do about it. They see what's going on, but there's nothing you can do about it. You may as well just live your life while you can. Personally, I can't sit back and not do anything. As I said, I couldn't walk away from this if I tried, because how can you see what you see, know what you know, and have personal sort of relationships with people who are suffering and just turn a blind eye? I couldn't, because it would still be there. So in terms of I don't even know what the solution is, because are there enough of us? Are there enough good people out there fighting for this? Can you change what is going on? Because people are suffering more and more.
Let's end on the high note. And I think we can. I think we can change this. I think 2025 was a great year. I think we turned the corner last year. I think 2026 is going to be even better year, and it's going to take a decade or two. Pardon?
I'm going to ask you. I'm going to flip this now. I'm going to ask you the question: why do you think that this year is going to be a better year? What is it in your head that makes you believe that?
I think
to go.
People are waking up. The English have woken up now. The English woke up last year with the protests outside migrant hotels, with raised the colours, the flags on lampposts, with the marches, the demonstrations. People have had enough. The English, who have always been quiet, have now woken up and said, enough is enough. We're now talking about mass deportations. The Supreme Court has now ruled what a woman is. All these things are showing me light at the end of the tunnel. And we've still got huge issues. You were talking about good, good and evil. And evil's been ruining this country. I'm not a religious person. I don't think I believe in God, so it's not like I'm preaching. But even I know killing 250,000 babies every year and calling it abortion is evil. Putting in new laws where we can get rid of old people, we're calling it assisted suicide, is evil. Not exposing grooming gangs is evil. So, and that's what we've been doing for many, many decades now. And that's because we've got a lack of religion. We rejected Christianity. And again, I'm not a Christian, but I see the value in a set of rules that gives you, some rules to live your life by. But I think, and Christianity is making a comeback now in the UK. More people are identifying, church attendances are going up. I think we've turned a corner. Better politicians are on the way. I don't know who they are at the moment, but the Uni Party looks like it's destroyed. The establishment's worried sick. That's why we're going to get more and more authoritarian laws, because they're losing power and they're going to strangle us even more. But that's a good sign, because that's a sign of them losing. They know they're losing. We just need to, all of us just need to carry on doing what we're doing. Not everybody can be a Claire Dyer. Not everyone can be a Nick Buckley, but everybody can do something.
And that's the problem, because you have people like me, people that are even doing more than me, and you become burnt out. You become burnt out, exhausted, ill. And you reach a point where you can't keep that momentum going. And you think, who's going to step up? We need more people. And that's what it takes. So many people have actually given up on people. They said, you can't wake them up. I'm done with them. And I've never, ever seen it that way. And I don't think I ever will. I do have hope, and I've said, maybe I'm deluded. Maybe I'm seeing it with rose-tinted glasses and I'm wrong. But I do have hope, because I see it every day. I see more and more people waking up every day. And there's the one thing, despite anything else that I'm doing and I'm fighting and campaigning for, the one thing I can do, and I believe I can do, is continue to gain awareness and reach people individually so that they do see what is going on. And they then obviously start to speak up rather than being silent. So I have hope that more and more people will continue to. And I've always said we will become a majority, but I actually do believe we are a majority. We're still just fractionally a silent majority. People need to get the strength and at the very least speak out. Even if you speak out, other people will see that actually, oh, that person's speaking up, that person sees it. There's suddenly find that they're surrounded by more people that are seeing it, and that is your herd mentality right there, but in our favor.
Absolutely. That's a great place to end. We're ending on hope. We're ending with courage is contagious. If you're courageous, other people see that and want to copy that, because we all want to copy the hero. We all want to copy brave people, but we have to see them for us to want to copy them. And you're such a person, Claire. You're the great white hope.
Thank you. I don't do compliments very well, but I've got a load to take them when I get them, especially when you get insults as well. So thank you.
Claire, thank you so much for coming on today, and let's do this again soon.
Thank you.